So in this video, I'm gonna share how conventional get your ex back advice typically fails you. Now, if you go and look what typical ex back advice even promotes, you will see the same types of behaviors constantly being encouraged, like how you need to impress your ex, how you need to get their validation, how you need to wait a certain amount of days before you reply to their text or return their phone call, how you should never double text, how you should always lead a conversation by being the one who asks the most questions, how you should always try and make your messages, your text messages, shorter than their text messages, how you should always end the conversation first, play hard to get, give out hot and cold or mixed signals in order to confuse your ex, how you should make them jealous, how you should use this pre-prepared texting template like the happy reminder text, all kind of bullshit, right? This is sadly the ex-back advice that is being preached about in this industry. Now, all of these behaviors that I've listed are what I call performance behaviors. And the thing about these behaviors is that they all follow the same underlying formula. Follow behavior X and your ex is gonna like you more or become more attracted or whatnot. Now, the funny thing about performance behaviors is that you can actually get your ex back through them. You can learn how to impress them the right way. You can learn exactly what to say in every situation. You can learn when to push forward, when to pull back and act indifferent. You can learn all about that stuff, like you would learn how to cook or how to write. And that's because performance behaviors are at their core a skill, one that you can not only learn but also master. That being said, and this is where things get a bit muddy, there is a dark underline to performance. There are a lot of negatives to actually trying to use and leverage the behaviors that I just listed. Now, as a side note, if you want to go deeper into getting an ex back, download my reattraction cheat sheet, link in the description down below this video. But anyway, to get back to the main topic. For starters, performance implies that you do not feel good enough for your ex as you are. I mean, think about it. If you feel you need a certain line to get your ex back, that you need maybe like a certain object, a certain like material possession, or maybe a certain amount of personal growth even. What you're implying to yourself, if that's your mindset, is I'm not good enough for my ex. I need me plus whatever this thing that you're imagining is to get my ex to like me again. And what you're essentially doing here when you're engaging in this process, in this mindset, is, well, you're putting your ex on a pedestal. You see them above yourself in terms of self-worth, and you see yourself as below them in terms of self-worth. And there's a gap between them and you. And this is what I call the inferiority gap. Now, when a person begins to form this gap in their mind, what they will tend to do is they will start to put a greater importance on what their ex thinks about them, how they feel, what their values are, what their beliefs are, instead of caring more about what they think, what they feel, what they value and believe in. Basically, they will start caring more about how their ex perceives them than how they perceive themselves. Now, what does this inferiority gap lead to? Well, it leads to more performance. And the more you perform, and this is, by the way, like a negative self-fulfilling prophecy, I think is the best way to put it, the more you then perform, the more unworthy you feel, and the wider your inferiority gap gets. And the wider your inferiority gap gets, the more you perform, and the cycle just keeps repeating. And this is very taxing, as you'd expect, on your mental health. It damages your self-esteem and your confidence and your belief in yourself. But that's only the effect the whole performance and the inferiority gap has on you. Now, there's also your ex to put into consideration, right? To consider. Well, the inferiority gap and the performance behaviors that you are engaging in because of it, or vice versa, it only makes your ex think about you in a more negative light, because they will see through your performance. That's the catch. Figuring out that you're faking it, that you're pretending to be someone you're not, that you're pretending to be who you are, that you're not being authentic. Figuring out all this stuff is pretty easy. Your ex probably knows you, even if you've been only together for a short period. And sooner or later, they will discover that what you're putting on is like, it's like a mask. And they will be repulsed by it, because no one likes to be tricked, no one likes to be manipulated. Yet that's exactly what you're doing when you're engaging in performance behaviors, and that's exactly what you're doing when you let yourself succumb to a wide inferiority gap. And this is the whole problem with conventional get your ex back advice. The more you try to perform what you're always encouraged, almost always encouraged to do, the more inauthentic you are, the wider your inferiority gap gets, the more needy behaviors you display as a result of that wide inferiority gap, and of course, the more unattractive you come across. Whereas the less you perform, the quicker your inferiority gap is going to close itself, the narrower it is, to put it another way, the more authentic you are, and as a result, the less needy behaviors you display and the more attractive you are in the eyes of your ex. It's really that simple. So the question is now, how do you stop performing all the damn time and close your inferiority gap? Obviously, this is a topic that's way beyond just one video. This is something that I'm tackling in various videos of mine, on various blog posts on my website, maxjancar.com, and it really boils down to a few crucial elements that I can ramble on about for hours, but I just don't have the time. However, here is a list for those interested in closing their inferiority gap. First of all, boundaries. You need to learn how to stand up for yourself more often. You need to develop and assert and hold proper personal boundaries, specifically those tied to your romantic relationships. You also have to work on overcoming any sorts of worth-based limiting beliefs around you, like I'm not worthy of my ex, or I'm not worthy of a loving partner, or I'm not good enough for a loving partner that understands me and is maybe similar to my ex. You need to overcome those beliefs. I have, by the way, again, articles on all of those topics on my blog. You also need to change your attachment style. If you're watching this video, if you're desperate about getting your ex back, you probably have an anxious attachment style. You are a very needy and codependent person, at least in some ways. Some people more, other people less. The point is, you need to overcome those tendencies, and the way you do it is through changing your attachment style to a secure variant. Now, most importantly, you gotta develop a really high dose of vulnerability. Now, this is the ultimate solution to your inferiority gap, because it's the complete opposite of performance. You cannot perform and fake who you are while you're being vulnerable. Now, when you start being vulnerable, you essentially open up yourself to your ex's disapproval and rejection, and that's ultimately attractive, specifically if you do not expect any certain reaction or experience or response in return. So let's say when you tell your ex, hey, I want you back, you don't expect the answer to come hitting you back to be something like, yeah, great, let's get back together. You are fine if you get basically no answer, or if you get rejected. You are fine with that. You have this mentality of, okay, yeah, I'm sad, I'm pissed off, but I'll survive. That's a good example of vulnerability. Another example of vulnerability would be standing up for yourself and telling your ex, hey, if you keep talking to me in this disrespectful way, I'm gonna end this date, or I'm going to end this conversation, or whatever. Or you just end it because you have zero patience of even being treated disrespectfully with disrespect from your ex. Or one last example, let's say your ex tries to place you in the friend zone. Well, being vulnerable is saying to them, hey, I don't want to be friends. I still love you. I still want to kiss you, cuddle, have sex with you, whatever. And I just really don't want this. If you want something romantically with me, contact me down the line, reach out, we can set up a date and let's try this again. But if you don't like that, if you don't want that, if that idea does not resonate with you, then we should move on our separate ways. That's also an instance of vulnerability. Now, at its most general, while this vulnerability stuff, while all of the tips that I just mentioned, yes, it helps with closing the inferiority gap. It helps you stop performing all the damn time. But the most important thing, the true beauty of all of these methods and tips that I gave you, they form the foundation for a healthy relationship to blossom with just about anyone. And this extends beyond your ex, and this even extends and reaches not just your romantic relationships, but also friendships and familial relationships. But anyway, that's a topic for another video. For now, if you want to get your ex back faster, go and download my reattraction cheat sheet. It's an accumulation of all of my knowledge, the most important knowledge on getting an ex back that I teach. Link in the description down below. Go download it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.